Greetings, Morehouse family. My name is Malachi Walden, a senior political science major from Augusta, Georgia, and I'm the 2018 Otis Moss Jr. Oratorical Contest winner. And it is my esteemed honor and privilege to welcome you all to the 2021 Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest. Unfortunately, due to these unparalleled times, we are unable to gather together physically. But rest assured that this contest will be one to remember. Once again, my name is Malachi Walden, and welcome to the 2021 Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest. Enjoy.
Let us center our hearts and minds for the invocation. Let us pray. O most capacious Creator, we come before you first, thanking you for breath and being, for the same living breath that you breathed into the nostrils of humankind is the same breath that gave vision to Morehouse College, a city upon a hill, a beacon of light. It is the air of expectancy we breathe, and is the breath that these orators will rely on for support on this divine day. We are thankful, Omnipresent One, for you granting us the providence to gather on this grand occasion virtually in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. We petition your presence as the great and mighty physician to heal the land, for there is a balm in Gilead to make the ill and ailing whole. And who can cure one sick soul? We make this request so that one day we will be able to gather physically again in the crown nave to hear the prophetic proclamations of your children, Almighty Author, and the ancestors. May your guiding spirits be with the brothers who will come before us and deliver the words you have helped craft. Comfort them as you have always comforted us through many dangers, toils, and snares. Be our hope, be our peace. We seal this prayer in all that is good and holy. We say, Ashe and Amen.
Greetings, Morehouse. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to the 23rd Annual Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest. My name is Carlton Bates. I am a junior business administration major from Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm pleased to join with you in celebrating this distinguished occasion. Giving honor where honor is due, I'd like to thank President Thomas, faculty, and staff for facilitating this event. This is a most looked forward to and long-standing tradition of Morehouse College, which celebrates the iconic oratory of Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III. This occasion allows the participants a chance to reflect and consider the condition of our society and create an oration fitting of the theme. This year's theme, is it morning or morning in America? Without further ado, it is with great honor I present to you the Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest.
Hello, everyone. I am Allison Ligon, Associate Professor of English. It is my pleasure to serve once again as Chair of Judges for this competition. This year's judges are Mr. Henry M. Goodgame, Jr., Vice President for the Office of External Relations and Alumni Affairs, Dr. Adrian Jones, Assistant Professor of Political Science and Director of the Pre-Law Program, Dr. Nathaniel Normand, Jr., Professor of English and Director of the Writing Center and the Black Ink Project. The Reverend Quincy James Reinhardt, the Associate Minister for the Morehouse College Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel, and Mr. Terry F. Walker, Sr., Director of Chapel Relations for the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel. This year's timekeepers are Mr. Chance Gladney, Mr. Kamal Grant, and Mr. Amari Paris. Competitors will be judged on the following criteria: command of the topic, articulation of ideas, presence during delivery, and completion of speech within the time allocated. The judges will review the recorded speeches independently and collectively and assess each competitor according to the aforesaid criteria. The timekeepers will record each presenter's time and note any time infractions. They will deliver this information to the judges. The judges will then deliberate on their findings and deliver them to the members of the Oratorical Committee for final verification. The competition's results will be announced soon thereafter. Thank you for your presence. Best wishes to the competitors.
Good morning. My name is Leah Krike. I am Professor of English and Director of the Howard Thurman Honors Program. The Oratorical Contest celebrates the iconic oratory of its founders, Dr. Otis Moss Jr., class of '56, and his son, Otis Moss III, class of '92. We appreciate the Moss family for their continued support of student oratory at Morehouse College. The riveting speeches that you will hear today from Morehouse students address the topic of the homonym as a metaphor for the American experience. The prompt asked, is it morning or is it morning in America? Morning and morning are homonyms, words that sound the same but have different meanings. I am sure you will enjoy the way in which the students address this challenge. May the competition begin.
Hello, my name is Jeremiah Davis. I'm a junior philosophy major from Chicago, Illinois. Is it morning or morning in America? I suppose one could say it's both. In 2020, the year of perfect vision, we were beset by an invisible enemy, one that was mightier than any pen or sword. We were again confronted with the virus that is racism, and asked once more whether we were willing to finally find a cure for it or not. Buildings burned, loved ones were lost, and the selfishness of a country was put on display for the entire world to see. Considering the tragedies that befell us in the span of 12 short months, one would be justified in thinking the whole of 2021 should be dedicated to mourning and recuperating. Not long ago, the Capitol building was besieged by supporters of Donald Trump. While many looked at the new year as a promising fresh start, they treated it as a continuation of the last. As such, they seized their moment without hesitation and saw fit to let their displeasure be heard no matter the consequences. A nation watched in horror as one of its most storied buildings was desecrated by fellow Americans. Images of broken windows, terrified legislators, and the raising of enemy flags spread throughout the world, demonstrating to all how false the city on the hill truly is. At the end of this disgraceful incident, 5 were declared dead, including a police officer who was bashed in the head with a fire extinguisher as punishment for doing his duty. Blood, urine, and feces stained the hallways. Offices were pillaged and podiums and other personal items pilfered as if they were tokens of war. All in all, a wound was inflicted upon the country that will never fully heal. So great was this catastrophe that the blame for it was tossed around like a hot potato, with no one wanting to hold onto it for too long. As the rest of the country fought over who to fault for this horrible affair, members of the Black community watched and earnestly wondered how many more would have died if the people who stormed the Capitol building had been Black, the answer of which I'm sure everyone in this room is already aware of. However, if we are to fully understand the severity of this event, we must look past its awful surface and examine what truly motivated these people to commit such heinous acts. See, many in the country are in a state of mourning, but many others are not. Instead, they are looking to the morning They are looking at each new day as an opportunity to destroy those they consider their enemies. They are wasting no time in their campaign and using every moment as if it is their last. As is often said, evil does not sleep. And I stand here to declare that neither can we. For if we spend our time mourning and idly waiting by, we'll be forced to helplessly watch as our country and communities are conquered by those who wish to move backward in time rather than forward. We must stand together against racism, fascism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and all other evils that seek to continue corrupting our society. We must meet the enemy at the gates and fight with our full force as our predecessors did before us. Trust me, there will be time for mourning. But in this moment, we must draw inspiration from the mourning and use it as an example of how to move forward in this year and all the ones to come. We must rise each day, ready to give everything we have in order to create a brighter future for all. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Cameron Markel Nolan, a graduating senior economics major with a minor in sales from Jackson, Mississippi. The title of my piece is Good Morning. Is it morning or mourning in America? This paradoxical paradigm is top of mind as America has removed herself from the comfort of her comforter, stretched her hands into a new day, and wiped her eyes clear of the scum that covered them in her slumber. She's exposed herself to the world in her cotton-picked linen, draped in audacity and arrogance. And for a moment, as we mourn, we may even feel gleeful at her plight. America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, is ran by oppressive cowards. Yet, as I examined the juxtaposition between mourning and mourning, there was only one word that spoke to me louder than the rest: balance. See, quarreling if America has chosen to wake up to her new morning or sleep for all eternity as the world mourns in her demise is merely arbitrary. Understand that these homonyms are not mutually exclusive. Mourning brings the warmth of new life. Mourning imparts the frozen kiss of death. Mourning reveals the light, yet mourning instills the darkness. Yet, if it were not for the darkness, we would never have the capacity to see the stars. Balance. For all things under the sun must operate cohesively in this ecosystem. If you can hear the sound of my voice, inhale. Now, inhale again and again and again. At this point, your lungs should have reached maximum capacity. Inhaling, an action synonymous with life, synonymous with mourning, has become too much for you. For too much of anything does you no good. Now, exhale. Exhaling, an action many shy away from in fear of taking their final breath, has proven imperative for your survival. America has been inhaling and exhaling since her inception, and now we are struggling with regaining the balance on both sides. Phonetically speaking, the only difference between mourning and mourning is the vowel sound U. And I argue that the difference between mourning and mourning is you, the individual. See, if you have a responsibility, an obligation, if you will, you are first-hand witnesses to the theft of this land, the murder of our individuality, and the rape of our resources. The first step in any solution begins with acknowledgement. You are very much so aware of the pitfalls of America. I do not have enough fingers nor toes to calculate the number of black lives that fell at the hands of prejudiced police. A rampant virus has claimed the lives of more than 400,000 Americans, denatured our culture as we know it, and has disproportionate economic and social ramifications on our lower and working class. Terrorist insurgents stormed into the United States Capitol as a means of demonstrating democracy. If we continue to exhale, surely we will reach our final breath. Have you witnessed enough? It is time to move out of our grieving period and embrace our mourning. We have seen America at her lowest so that we now have a benchmark for her growth. We have seen the unequitable treatment of Black lives in this land so that we now have a standard of what we will and will not tolerate any further. We have endured the economic hardships of this pandemic so that we now have a cause and action to support Black businesses, support our communities, and protect what should have been ours 400 years ago. We are vessels filled with power, with the treasure for the world. At our hands, America will either arise and embrace her new dawn, or she will rest in her brand new coffin in her final evening gown. The onus is on us to wake America up. Good morning.
Greetings. I am Devin R. Pinkston, junior political science major and naval science minor from Thompson, Georgia. Since forcibly creating the African diaspora, the Black plight has always been to find the silver lining on an old, irritating terry cloth. The pride, dignity, and centering truth our enslaved ancestors held so dear was shamelessly beaten out of them. They also bore excruciating pain by laying loved ones that embraced them dearly to rest. Mother Mercy fought the good fight. Their dad dignity was killed mercilessly. Brother Benevolence was shown no respect. Sister Serene suffered the ultimate persecution. With no touch of peace, their hearts were in mourning. One day, a child was birthed into this pain and knew that they had been suffering long enough. She was determined to bask in the full light of this emancipated glory, even if it meant covertly traveling at night. After a while, morning came, and our ancestors were set free. Nevertheless, a new storm of oppression formed over the land. This nation had a problem with telling half-truths and living whole lies. If the United States glanced in the convicting mirror as much as they looked out the judging window and saw how they were mistreating their own citizens, they would aggressively intervene as they had done in other countries around the world. The same country that believed in liberty and justice for all also promoted a separate but equal ideology. The harsh reality was that partial freedoms legislated by an unjust government were given to appease. Unfortunately, Black people were no stranger to times like these. Backdoor access to and subpar service of America's freedom killed the spirits of many. Numerous politicians felt this allotment of freedom was enough, and when Black people demanded more, the response was, "That's tough." Their hearts were truly in mourning. The children birthed in this suffering grew to know the God who is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. These activist works matched their faith, and midnight prayers were rewarded in the morning. Victory was short-lived because the biggest problem is still prevalent. Slave catchers disguised as sheriffs are operating in police brutality. This would prove to be a long night where countless Black people fell to the hands of corrupt police officers. Every hour seemed to stretch a decade and cause more trouble and swifter judgment by everybody except the judge. I can recall at 9 o'clock, Rodney King being brutally beaten by 4 officers, with even more as bystanders. 2 of these officers were acquitted, thus leaving our hearts in mourning. At 10 o'clock, Katherine Johnston was the victim of a botched, no-knock warranted drug raid. Our hearts are in mourning. At 11 o'clock, we laid to rest Trayvon Martin, who was killed by a vigilante, and Sandra Bland, who mysteriously died in police custody. Our hearts are in mourning. In the midnight hour, we lost Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and so many more. our hearts are in mourning, but I see morning coming. Someone once told me that though weeping may endure for a night, joy comes in the morning. We have been weeping for a mighty long time, but the winds of change are bringing morning with them. Heightened police accountability and redirection of funds and services are coming in the morning. Less discriminatory health care is coming in the morning. The reparations we have been long seeking are coming in the morning. This journey has been hard, but I encourage you to keep the faith and zeal for justice as we transition from mourning to morning.
My name is Alexander Walton, sophomore philosophy major from Raleigh, North Carolina. My brothers, it was only a few days ago that we celebrated the life and work of our greatest alumnus, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Like so many of you, I scrolled Instagram and Twitter and was happy to see that many seem to be observing the holiday, at least perfunctorily, in a manner that I had not observed in years prior. However, I noticed that most of the quotes from those I follow, from former presidents to my past AAU teammates, seem to be taken from King's I Have a Dream speech and his letter from Birmingham jail. It is to the credit of our excellent philosophy department that my first thoughts went instead to a sermon delivered by King at Ebenezer Baptist Church, titled The American Dream. I feel that this sermon is especially relevant to today's topic. In this piece, King reflects on what he calls the schizophrenic strain in American society and what is the needed response from contemporary Americans. It was King's observation, one with which I strongly agree, that America was founded upon the theological belief in the Imago Dei, that all human beings were created in the image and likeness of God, that all human beings are of intrinsic and equivalent moral worth, and that all laws should be passed in order to complement the flourishing and personality of all human beings. In addition, any law which degrades the personality of a human being is an unjust law. The American regime has both affirmed the dignity of human beings through constitutional amendments and civil rights acts, and also denied it through slavery, Jim Crow, and all other forms of unjust discrimination. This schizophrenic nature is highly distressing to those who share King's concern for the disinherited and downtrodden, and all those who wish for America to fulfill its creed and become the great country it is meant to be. It is my belief that the schizophrenic nature leads to two discrete emotions when people view the American regime. Expressions of optimism, analogous to a sun rising, representing morning in America, or feelings of overwhelming despair and frustration, a dark emotion of grief, representing mourning in America. When considering the strength of our ancestors in light of this fact, I would turn to the great Negro spiritual of our ancestors, whose words say, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking. I'm gonna keep on talking, marching down to freedom land." The progress of all classes of people who have been denied the full personality of humanity in the American regime has been secured through their belief in the American dream, which is made possible by the emphasis on human equality and the Declaration of Independence. The American regime created a context in which even those who were the most reviled could assert their rights, because our rights don't come from the government. They don't come from our fellow citizens, and they don't come from the Constitution. Our rights come from God, and because of that, no human power can take them away. My brothers, America is the result of endless toil and constant vigilance, of an indefatigable disposition that has made our modern celebration of equality possible. In short, it is mourning in America because of our continued belief in the American project, which is itself a product of providence.
I offer greetings at this moment to my Morehouse family. I'm so delighted to be a part of this Founders Day celebration and the Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest. It is my father, who graduated in 1956, who brings together a variety of oral influences, one from the South, one from West Africa, the Black church tradition, and of course, being under the tutelage of the great Benjamin Elijah Mays and Dr. Samuel Williams. Oratory is more than just communication. It is the transmission in the West African tradition of what is called nomo, literally that you are placing an idea and a spirit into someone else. The West African people, the Dogon, believed that the word was so powerful that if a woman was pregnant, that you could not have a person who was negative around that woman for fear that the word would rest on the ears of the unborn child, and the child would not have a fresh and healthy start in life because negativity had entered their spirit. And so this oratorical contest brings together the griot tradition and also the great African-American prophetic tradition that goes from the moment that we arrived on these shores in 1619, where we were always using our verbal dexterity to communicate a double entendre, to be able to communicate to each other and then communicate something different to those who thought they had enslaved us. So I'm thankful to Morehouse and to all those who have participated in the work of putting together this amazing oratorical contest. I thank Dr. Criquet for her incredible organization and also the mentoring of all of the young men who have participated in this work. I want to give a special shout out on behalf of my family to Jeremiah Davis, Cameron Nolan, Devin Pinkston, and Alexander Walton. We honor you, we thank you for holding this great tradition, holding the griot tradition, the prophetic tradition, the Southern storytelling tradition within your heart. And what you do today will end up blessing generations that are yet to be born. To be able to tell a story, to be able to execute with verbal dexterity what is in your mind, and to pass on an idea and let it rest on the hearts of those you encounter. We thank you. Eyes have not seen, ears have yet to hear what God will do in your life as you continue to grow, develop, and walk the path that has been laid for you. May Morehouse continue to grow, and may you, as you leave this institution to go on to do the work that you have been called, may the ideals of Morehouse rest upon you. Be true forever, my brothers. God bless. Dear old Morehouse.